Hey guys, Jeffrey from Headstrong Training Systems here. So today we're going to be taking a look at the deadlift, and in particular we're going to be looking at the issue where we see that the hips will rise at the initial break of the movement. And what I mean by that is basically, say you're in position, you're about to perform the deadlift, you're in this bottom position, you see that a lot of people, when they go to break at the initial breaking the barbell off the ground, what first happens is that the hips will shoot up. So say their hips will shoot up and then they'll start to perform the movement. So that's the issue that we'll be addressing today. Now, when people see that there's the occurrence of hip shoot in the deadlift from that initial position, what people will usually say straight away is because they'll say that your quads are too weak. And that's correct to an extent. Essentially, at top end range strength, the body will always try to shift yourself into a position and try to self-organize the body into the position that is most stable and most strong, or subconsciously secure for them to execute in. So whilst weak quads can be an area that is attributed to the weakness, and there definitely is a correlation there, and we can attribute it to the body trying to shift the movement to a more dominant part, such as the posterior chain, the hips, and the hamstrings at the back, trying to shift to a more dominant group. Most of the times, the reason that the quads are seen as the weak group is actually, or why the body's trying to shift away into a posterior chain, is actually because of your positioning. Because we know that at the bottom of the deadlift, your quads aren't actually a main driver. It's actually your hamstrings that are a main driver. So a lot of the times, it's not because your quads are weak, but it's because you're not using the right body parts and you're not positioning yourself into the correct movement to execute and to generate torque off the floor. So straight away, two key areas that we want to look at. Firstly, we want to look at, is the barbell position over our center of mass and our midfoot. So if you're taking a look at your positioning from the side view, and then you see that when you hinge down into position, that your armpits aren't directly set over the center of mass. So most likely what it's going to look like is that the armpits are going to be behind the barbell. So in this position, we can kind of tell that a lot of the weights on my heels, I'm sitting very upright and I'm almost falling back because I've hinged down into an inefficient position where I'm set behind the back and my hips are set too low. And so in this position, the quads are the main driver because of how low down the hip is. There's no moment arm of the hips for them to produce torque. And so when I go to break, the first thing that my body's going to do is going to shift forward. And when I shift forward, my hips are going to shoot up to get myself into a position. You see that this is the position where now the barbell is directly over my center of mass. So that's the first main cause, where it's due to an inefficient hinge. You haven't got it into an optimal position to execute, to recruit the hamstrings and take load off the quads and place it on the posterior chain where it should be. Now the second thing that could be occurring is that you're overwedging. So you're hinging down into a great position, you're perfectly set with the center mass. The problem is you're overwedging. After you suck, when you wedge through, you're overwedging, and you see that the bar will roll over to you. And essentially, whilst the overwedging is a different problem than compared to the hinge, the end result is the same. You still put yourself into a position where your hips are set down too low, and in order to correct itself, the first thing the body wants to do when breaking the floor is for the hips to shoot back up. So to summarize what we've gone over today, basically today we've looked at why hip shoot occurs breaking off the floor in deadlift. We've attributed to most of the cases it being a positioning issue where you've set the hips too low during your hinge, or you've overwedged and you've forced the hips down too low, and then in order to correct itself, the body has self-organized by shooting the hips. So more often than not, it's a positioning issue rather than a quad weakness issue. So that's all from me today, guys. Hopefully that was helpful for you, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.